Good morning, my lovelies, my beauties, my friends. My name is Christina and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I really hope that you will subscribe, stick around, take a chance on hearing some things that I have to say. And if you are a returning subscriber, y'all already know, y'all are my babies. So good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm back at it again with another video, and I've brought Pookie Duke, my little Pookie, and she is going to tell you guys her story, her life story, where she's from, what she's been through, how she ended up in prison, and kind of what happened afterwards. So I'm gonna disappear, and yeah, so why don't you just snap your fingers.
Here I am by myself in front of the camera. Hi, I'm Alex, otherwise known as Pookie. You can call me Pookie. It's better that way. I want to share a little bit about my story today so you guys can get to know me a little bit better. Christina's talked about me before in some of her other videos, and so now you'll be able to put a face with a name and a story with a name and all of that. I was a very depressed child. I think that's the thing that I can trace it back to, where all of the issues started. Came from a broken home, did not feel love. I felt had a lot of rejection and just felt alone. That continued all throughout elementary school. I was a loner. I was kind of a weird kid. I was made fun of for things and just felt isolated, just felt alone, and carried that with me for a long time. So into middle school, started skipping classes, started smoking weed, just kind of moved on into things, and then the summer before 9th grade got pretty heavily into drugs. It was never really like a recreational thing for me. It's almost like the first time that I ever got high, I was addicted to it. I loved the feeling. I hated myself. I was depressed. I remember writing in a journal when I was really, really young, 10 or 11 years old, about depression. So was just always kind of not happy with myself, did not want to be myself, wanted to escape. Got into the drug scene, felt super accepted by those people, felt like, man, I am loved here, I'm accepted. I look back now and I'm like, that was not the case, but they just welcomed me in. They welcomed me with all of my quirks, and drugs felt great. It was just this escape. When I was 14, this was kind of a turning point too. Things got worse. I had started doing drugs, and then like just a few short months after that, I kind of just put my foot in the door with some of that, and I was at a party. And after that, not only did I just feel walls go up in general toward men, I ended up in homosexual relationships. I still slept around. I was very promiscuous, but I always felt like a woman couldn't hurt me the way that a man did, and was confused as to what love was and what acceptance was and all of that. So got really, really deeply heavy into the scene at that point. When I wasn't high, I was trying to figure out how I could get high again. I ended up doing things that I said I would never do for just, it just got really, really bad. So I turned 18. Now through all of that time, I was in and out of hospitals, rehabs. My mom paid for me to go to rehabs multiple times, and basically I would go in and kind of just felt like learn more tricks about how to hide addiction. That's not what they were teaching us, obviously, but I was in there with a bunch of addicts and manipulative people. So that's what I came out with, and I would go back in worse than I was before, just with worse habits and worse addictions. So in and out of a lot of that stuff. Was asked to leave my house at 16 and just went around, got high all the time, slept around, did whatever I needed to do. It was not like a glorified life at all. It was me overstaying my welcome at people's houses and just not good. So when I turned 18, I got an apartment. I'd had a good job, surprisingly. Well, before that, let me go back. I got pregnant for the first time when I was 17, and the guy that I was with was a Christian. I was not raised in a Christian home. I had to go to church with my dad at times. I had no desire for God, just none at all. Got connected with somebody that was in the youth group at his church, ended up moving in with him, sleeping with him, got pregnant. He wanted to keep the baby. I did not have the support that I felt like I would have needed to have a baby. And I also did not want to stop getting high, honestly. So I had an abortion. That was my first abortion. As I got further into the drug scene, ended up in the sex industry, started dancing basically a week after I turned 18. Things got really, really, really dark. It was not this glorified thing that you see on TV about strippers. It was, I'm wasted. I had to be high to get up there and do that. I hated it. I hated myself. I hated the life that I was living, but I just had to be wasted to do it. And it wasn't me making a bunch of money and buying a house and a car. It was me literally just doing whatever I needed to do to get high. So if you could provide me with drugs, I was there, and I was doing crazy, crazy stuff. It was really dark. I got pregnant 2 more times in the midst of all of that and aborted both times. So I've had 3 abortions. It went from, you know, making money at the club and hanging out with people at the club to meeting guys in hotels, just really doing whatever I needed to do to get high. I was very, very deeply addicted, very, very darkly depressed, and then ended up in prison. So I had met a guy from a girl that I had danced with, met a guy, he was selling drugs, started selling drugs with him, was so green, thought that I knew what I was doing, and was set up by an informant, and got arrested with a bunch of cocaine, ended up with trafficking cocaine, trafficking ecstasy, possession charges, delivery, all kinds of stuff. Ended up getting put on probation for that. I had never been in legal trouble before. I had gotten in a lot of trouble just with mental health issues and hospitalizations and things like that, but I had not been in legal trouble, very surprisingly, with all the drinking and driving, all that stuff that I was doing. It's amazing to me that I never got in trouble before that. So got arrested with all of those charges, got put on probation, and violated my probation. I think it was 6, maybe 9 months in, with a DUI and driving with suspended license. My license had been, I'd never even actually had a real license. I had a permit, and that had been suspended months, I mean years probably prior, and was just driving around, and every time I got pulled over, I'd get another driving with suspended license. So I think I had 3 or 4 of those. DUI, violated my probation. I was on drug offender probation. I thought I'm gonna go up the road for a year. I ended up getting 42 months in Florida State Prison. Now the funny thing is that they offered me 2 years in prison and 2 years on paper, on probation. And I thought probation is a setup. If I'm in here for 2 years, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna do the same things I was doing before, and I'm gonna be on probation, I'm gonna get myself cased up again. So I took the 4 years in, ended up being 42 months. I took that time in, and what is really cool about that is that I was in prison for 2 years before God saved me. So if I would have gotten out, if I would have taken the 2 years in and the 2 years out, probably I would be dead. I would probably be dead, because I had complete 100% intentions of going back to the same things that I was doing before. I just had no intent on having a changed life. I cared nothing about God. I was not raised in a Christian home with any consistency. It was just not on my radar. I did not want the accountability, wanted nothing to do with that. So I had a friend who was a believer. She had ended up in jail for some drug charges from a boyfriend that she was with, but she really, really just loved Jesus. And this girl, she pursued me in a way that nobody else had pursued me before. She would listen to me talk about cutting and depression and the girlfriends that I had in prison, because let me just say that everything that I did on the streets, including addiction, followed me into prison. It didn't change just because my location changed. The problem was my woundedness, it was my addiction, it was my mental health, it was all of that stuff. So she would listen to me talk about these things, and other people, my family included, it just felt like everybody had kind of given up on me, that I was a lost cause. I had people tell me all the time, you're gonna end up dead, you're gonna end up dead, you're gonna end up dead. And I always felt like that was a challenge. I kind of wanted to prove them right. It wasn't like, oh, I'm not gonna end up dead, I'm gonna get my life together and do better. It was like, okay, all right, let's go get high, right? I did not care. I did not want to be alive. So to be able to share all of that with a person and have them like pray for you and love you and pursue you was absolutely life-changing for me, because I had always just been given up on. And so honestly, it bothered me. She was a goody two-shoes Christian, and I was like, like, I had known Christians in my life, some of them very close to me, and there were some problems with them. And I thought, if you're a Christian, I'm a Christian, right? So that's kind of how I felt about this girl at first. I'm like, okay, well, anything that she had wrong with her, I just thought, okay, I don't want to be a Christian if this is what Christians are like. But she left the prison. She got to leave to go to a special release boot camp thing. And man, I don't know how else to say it except for that God just gripped my heart. And I finally realized what she had is what I wanted. And I didn't want to admit that that was God for a long time. But one day I was reading, she had given me a Bible. And I was reading in John, where John baptizes Jesus. It's in John 3. So you could read it if you wanted to. And all of a sudden I just felt like I need to be baptized. I went into the shower in the prison, just went into the shower, and all of a sudden I felt emotion toward God, toward a God that I never even believed existed before that. And it's only God. I was his enemy. I didn't want him. He just gripped my heart in that moment. And the first thing that I felt toward God was anger, because if God was real and God was good, then all of these things wouldn't have happened in my life. But it turned from that into just a moment of surrender. I cried, I wept, and I felt very clearly God say, it's okay, you're mine now. So my life drastically changed from that point on. I mean, there was a girl that I'd been attracted to just the day before. I woke up the next morning, I looked across the room and I saw her, and I didn't feel that anymore. It was like all of these lust things that I dealt with, addiction, cutting, bulimia, all of that stuff. I did struggle with bulimia still for a little while afterwards, but then after that it was just cut. Like, so many things changed so quickly. Got out of prison, and I was a mess. I think maybe she's mentioned this before, but if she hasn't, I was the one that people said, if anybody's gonna go back to the streets and go back to drugs, it's gonna be Lexi. It's gonna be her. She's unstable, she's too emotional, she doubts and she questions, and she just can't get this right? Like, I thought that too. I took that on myself, and I had a lot of fear because of that. But I got out, I went to the women's home with Christina. We had some really fun times and some really crazy times too. I think both of us felt like we had to be something that we weren't, because we just had no experience with Christianity. So it was like, to be a Christian, you have to look like this and say these things and do these things and pray this way. So there was a lot of pressure. I think we were both unhealthy in a lot of ways during that time, because we felt like we needed to be something that we weren't to be able to measure up. So thankfully, I grew out of a lot of that. After the women's home, I think I was there for about 16 months. I left and I went to a Bible college, just moved to Dallas, didn't know anybody, just picked up and moved. I'm kind of like that, just make big decisions and run with it. And then my life since then has been kind of the same way. So I met my husband there. We met, dated, were engaged and married almost a year basically to the day that we met. So we had some issues in early marriage just because we didn't know each other very well and all of that. But we now have 3 kids. We have lived in a couple of places overseas. We lived in the Philippines for a while, and then we lived in Thailand. We moved back from Thailand because my middle child was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. We've been back for about 3 years. And we thought we were gonna be able to go back to Thailand at some point, but she's still doing pretty badly. We're still trying to find a medicine that will help her. So that's where we're at now. My life just truly changed. Some of it changed very quickly. My addictions changed very quickly. And then other things, there's been a lot of wounding, a lot of things that I've had to deal with over the years, the abortions and addiction and certain relationships and certain things that happen in the sex industry. There's just a lot of crazy stuff that I've had to work through. But I guess the biggest thing is, early on I thought, if I'm a Christian, everything is supposed to be good and perfect and happy all the time. And I now know that that is not only not true for us in our daily lives, but scripture tells us the opposite of that, that we're broken, we need a savior. And I'm so thankful, because there was that moment where it was finally like, I see this need that I have, and I just run so hard for so long, and my life was changed. It's not a walk in the park, but when I look back at where I was, and when Christina and I talk about where we used to be and how we were and the things that we did and the people we ran with, and it's just amazing to me that a life can look this this different now. And I didn't do it. I wanted nothing to do with it. I was not seeking it out. It was just truly the Lord. So I hope that some of this is encouraging to you. I know that if you're struggling with addiction, or if you know somebody that's struggling with addiction, it can feel like you're never going to be able to get out. But I'm thankful for the story that I have, because I cannot look at someone and think that they're too far gone, because I was literally cutting myself. I was an addict. I was abusing my body. I was manipulative. I was a liar. I was all of these just terrible, broken things. I mean, I had sold drugs to young people. I mean, like, I was the worst of the worst. Didn't have a place to stay sometimes, overstayed my welcome everywhere, just strung out, getting in trouble. And God saved me. And so when I think about those details of my story, I feel a lot of hope for anybody that's broken. So hopefully that's encouraging. If you know somebody that's struggling and you feel like this story would be an encouragement to them, please share it with them. I'm an open book, just like Christina is. My life is just open. So if you have questions, please let me know. I would love to answer and engage with you and talk with you and encourage you, pray with you if that's what you need, because we're here. We're here for you, and we know what it's like to struggle. We still struggle. I mean, come on, we still struggle, but we know what it's like to overcome a lot of things, and that hope is out there for anybody that's struggling. So thank you guys. Special shout out to Christina for letting me do this video and for inviting me on this trip. It's been so fun. As a stay-at-home mom of 3 kids, I don't get out and do fancy stuff and get lashes and things like that very often. So this has been awesome. Thank you. You guys are awesome. I love you guys because Christina loves you guys, and you guys love her. And that's so evident in the support that you give her. She is very, very blessed and very, very grateful for all of you. So thank you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Pook, for sharing your story. So what do you think has been the most difficult thing for a life change?
Just the pressure of the world. The pressure of the world around me, for sure. Like I shared about in the other video when we talked about like people throwing the joint at me on the streets and all that. Like, you can avoid a lot of that in prison, but then you get out and man, it just comes at you from all sides.
Yeah.
And that's why so many people end up going back to prison, is because they don't have a support system. They don't have just the ability to make the right decisions, you know?
Yeah, they don't believe in themselves too. A lot of the time, especially because you get beaten down so much when you're in prison.
Yeah, and then you get out, you try to find a job, and for some people that's a lot harder than other people, and you're like, how am I supposed to get on top? How am I supposed to move forward here? Because you know, I mean, you carry like a red letter on your face of being a felon, of being a convict. And even if you try to carry yourself a certain way, I mean, eventually you come out of that. We've been out so long now. We've had different jobs and we've seen success, but it's hard because you really were beaten down and conditioned. Like, you were silenced in prison, and you get out, you're like, who am I? You know, what am I out here for? What am I doing? And then you have a hard time finding a job. And a lot of the time, for us, I think it helped a lot that we went to a different location. I think one of the biggest problems for people is going back to the same places, same people, same things that they did before.
Yeah.
I would have ended up on drugs probably within a couple of weeks if I had gone back to where I had come from, because the pull of all of that is so strong. Yeah, it's just strong.
So, you know what the craziest thing about it too is that even though I'm just going to talk from my experience, even though I've been out for 11 years now, over 11 years, almost 12, coming up on 12 in the beginning of next year. Anyways, whatever.
It's a long time.
Yeah, and I haven't even had a speeding ticket in 14 years. Yeah. That even though I've done all this, I've done all of this extra stuff, you know, I volunteer, I do things to help others. Still to this day, if I go and try to get a real job, which this is a real job, trust me, but like a corporate job, I have to deal with this forever. And I really feel like there should be some sort of time crunch that away, like maybe it doesn't go away, time crunch isn't the right word I want to say, a time period, that it doesn't go away legally for the courts, or maybe if you get pulled over from a cop, they can still look it up and see you so they can assess things, you know, the way that they need to be. But, you know, if I want to go and get a job, what, 10 years? Like, can I put you know, or should there be like a thing with other than sex crimes, murders?
Right, yeah.
Those should be on there forever. No offense to anybody that maybe has a loved one, but like, you know, people in their workplace need to know if they have somebody that is like, you know, may possibly hurt them in that way or either one of those ways.
So we tried to get a rental house, and for the first time in years, there was an organization that like rents multiple houses in our city. They rent them out, and they told me that we could never, ever, ever rent a house that they owned because of my charges. And this was 13 years ago at the time. 13 years ago. We couldn't find a place to live when we got back from overseas. We lived with my husband's parents.
You mean it had been 13 years?
It had been, it had been 13 years since I got my charges. And they were like, you can never rent with us. I was like, what? Like, I mean, you can look at me with my husband and my kids now and be like,
she just got back from being on a mission trip in another country to help other people.
Yeah, girl ain't slanging drugs no more. You know, like, you can look at me and see that. So it was just strange to me, and that kind of stuff follows people forever.
And what do you expect people to do? And this is not me making an excuse, okay, by any means, because I know I've had to work my butt off. She's had to work her butt off. She went through the same stuff as me. She went to the program, and they take you to get an ID, and they hand you a bus card, and they say, figure it out, basically. Go and find a job. And we're like, what? You know, and we did, you know. But we could have easily went the other route, because even that home that we were in was in a drug neighborhood,
right?
You know, there was literally homeless people smoking dope right across the street. Literally, you can open the door and see tents and people getting high over there. So you've really got to have the willpower. But with that being said, you can't hardly find a house. Even years later, it's very hard to find a job. You know, like, what do you and we wonder why the recidivism rate is what it is.
Because they're not actually helping transform people. And granted, that's not what the prison system is designed for, but it should be.
Well, it says Department of Corrections.
Right, yeah.
They don't need to, they need to take that out. Because that's not what it is.
Yeah, it's not. It's a bunch of conditioning. They think we're going to make you a productive member of society by making you do this and this and that, but you leave with so much trauma. And most of the time people leave without a lot of support. And that's a big part of it too, is like when you have family and you have support to go back to, which in our case, and I had family, I didn't go back to them, but we had the program. And that was our family and that was our support. As imperfect as it may have been and as imperfect as we were, it was still our family. Like, we had support. But when people leave and they go back to the hood without support, they go back to the things they were doing before, they haven't been changed by the prison system. They've been hurt by the prison system. They've been wounded by the prison system, and they feel more angry than they were before, or more hurt than they were before. People with depression issues, people with anger, it just intensifies all of that stuff. And that's why so many people go back. I mean, you and I know a lot of people who have been in and out after that. And it's not, again, and you say this all the time, and I'm going to say it, it's only Jesus. There's no other explanation to why we are sitting here in front of a camera, and most of the other people that, not most of the other people, but a lot of other people that go to prison are back in there. It's only Jesus. Sure as heck ain't the prison system, because they are not helping people. They're not helping people. It just doesn't help. It's, like I said before, it's an abusive environment.
And the crazy thing about it too is, like, first of all, according to, I want to say it was 2018 or maybe it was 2017, if you guys watched my video comparing the prisons between here and Norway, we have 2.2 million Americans behind bars here, okay? So there's not enough programs for everybody anyways. There's not enough programs in the prison and out of the prison. I would not have even known about the program had I not had my awakening and my spiritual, you know, you guys have watched the video. If you haven't, I will leave it linked below, what actually changed me. But had I not had that and been in that mind frame, and then asked the chaplain, told him, like, I can't go back home, what can I do? And he was like, well, you can go into a home somewhere, like a homeless shelter or like a you know, a women's whatever, and that's how I got into it. But like, that information isn't offered to people in there.
Yeah.
I would have never known. Like, it's not like you're in there and they're like, okay, these are your options when you get out.
Right.
No, you just serve your time and they release you.
Yep.
That's it.
Give you a bus ticket.
Yeah. So, all right, my battery's about to die, so we're going to cut this off here. Thank you guys so much for listening. Don't forget to check out Alex. I'll leave her Instagram linked below as well. Please don't forget to like this video. It's a free way that you can help your girl out. And until next time, I love you guys so very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.
We are dreaming.